Every single person in the United States is most likely consuming too much fat, and that's why they're restricted from losing weight. You can make some great progress with fasting and with no carbs. Smelly, what is wrong with you? Why in the did you change your diet? Why did you change your mind so drastically? Yeah, I think it's important that we have an open mindset and we try to think about things from a reasonable perspective. Vegetables, lean sources of meat. So my definition of very low fat, anything that would be under 30 or 40 grams of fat. Welcome to the single digit body fat series.
Strength is never weakness, weakness is never strength.
Figure out a way to just be less fat. And you know what that means. What in the will happen if I go all in on this? Today I'm going to tell you how to get ridiculously shredded. Welcome to the single digit body fat series, everybody. We're going to talk about something a little different. I'd mentioned in 2025 how you can make some great progress with fasting and with no carbs. And then, because I had Cole Robinson on my podcast and because I'd been listening to some of the information from Cole Robinson, I flipped the script on you guys and now I'm eating carbohydrates. Some days 400 carbs, some days 500 carbs. A lot of these carbohydrate sources are coming from sugar. Smelly. What is wrong with you? Why in the did you change your diet? Why did you change your mind so drastically? Because there's nothing more drastic than going from running off of fat to now running off of carbohydrates. Let me just explain a little bit further. I've been a fan of both styles of diets for a long time. I have always felt that you should pick. You either pick carbohydrates or you pick fats. And yes, I know the calorie counting cunts out there are saying, well, you can just count your macros and count your calories as well. And then I know. Just get off my ass for a second here. I think it's preferred that you pick carbohydrates or fats. People that are really lean and people that have a really awesome aesthetic physique almost always do not normally consume that much fat. There are some people, Dr. Dominic D'Agostino and some other keto freaks out there who have managed to be very lean doing a keto style diet. And he does an actual keto diet where he's consuming 100, 150, 200 grams of fat. But out of everybody I know, he's kind of the only one. We also have Robert Sykes. Can't forget about Mr. Keto Brick. I'm not saying it can't be done that way. And I'm not saying that I haven't gotten lean myself utilizing low carb protocols. I have. I've gotten in great shape many times with that. And I've also, it's been the savior. It saved my life in a lot of ways. I came all the way from 330 pounds. I first started a paleo style diet, which ended up being low carb for me. And I pretty much ate, I think maybe some rice and some potatoes. I forget what you're allowed to eat on a paleo diet, but I remember eating meat and some sort of carbohydrate here and there, but it was relatively a low carbohydrate diet. Then I switched into a low carb diet, and then I kind of switched into a little bit more keto, and then I did the war on carbs type stuff, which I've shared with you guys. But even in my book, The War on Carbs, I do talk about an evolution. I talk about a couple different styles of diets. And if you guys remember, if you guys are long-time fans of mine, I had Operation Get Less Fatterist. Operation Get Less Fatterist had multiple diets in it over multiple months because I noticed October, November, December, people were starting to chub out every single year. They would gain that weight around Halloween, all the way through Thanksgiving, all the way through Christmas, and then unfortunately even sometimes a little bit into the new year. And then maybe around the second week in January, they go to the gym and they start maybe following through on some stuff they talked about previously, but usually not. And usually they had a hard time losing weight. But in Operation Get Less Fatterist, I did talk about different styles of diet. And I wanted people to be exposed to different styles of diet. When it comes to bodybuilding, bodybuilders almost always do a very similar diet. Why is this? Why do bodybuilders do a similar diet? Why do almost every single bodybuilder that you see, or every single men's physique, or every single bikini, or every single women's physique athletes, or any of these people, why do they all follow a similar plan? They all follow a similar plan because it works really well. And that similar plan is low fat. If you go back and watch some of my videos that started the single digit body fat series, what was I talking about? I was talking about low carb and low fat. And remember, I was saying, hey, let's sink those fats down a bunch. The problem with that style of diet is you can do it, and it's great for a handful of days. Remember, I did talk about this a lot. I said, if you can handle this for like a week or so, you will drop tremendous amounts of weight. The only thing that makes it difficult is that you're going to be really hungry because you don't have, and your energy output is going to start to suffer. Your energy output is going to suffer because you don't really have great sources of energy coming in. You either pick carbohydrates or you pick your fats. If you cut out both, yes, you will get tremendously lean. Yes, a lot of bodybuilders do that, but they usually do it for like the last month when they're in prep, and then they never do it again until they're going to hit the stage again. So you guys know I've been very open-minded, or at least try to keep an open mind. I got blind spots just like everybody else. I try to keep an open mind on particular styles of workouts, particular styles of running, particular style. That's why I became a runner, was because the entire time I've been fairly open-minded to other disciplines and to other things. And over the years, I've even learned that the strength that I built in powerlifting is just strength for powerlifting, and that it may not have been all that relative to things in the outside world, although potentially it could be if I did the two things simultaneously. Yeah, I think it's important that we have an open mindset and we try to think about things from a reasonable perspective. When Cole Robinson started spitting all this information out about eating sugar.
Cut the fat out, you fat pigs!
Okay, hold on a second. Cole's had very good ideas in the past. He was talking about keto. He was talking about low carb. He was talking about fasting. We've seen eye to eye on a lot of stuff. I'm like, what is this? Oh, wait a second. He's talking about carbohydrates in the absence of fat. He's talking about consuming a lot of fruit. I think we can all agree. Fruit is very healthy. He's talking about consuming some vegetables. I think we can all agree. Vegetables are fairly healthy. And then he starts talking about eating very lean sources of meat. Fruit, vegetables, lean sources of meat. I think we can all agree, I'll drink to that that's a pretty damn healthy diet, right? Where his diet starts to skew and starts to go a little off kilter, perhaps, and this is the reason for the experiment, is when he starts to talk about eating some candy, eating some Sour Patch Kids, he uses Halls. I mean, who would choose that? That's how you know the guy's nuts. He's using like the cough things or whatever, and those are disgusting. But anyway, he says you can have some candy as long as the candy doesn't have fat in it. One of his points being is he thinks a lot of people's thyroid is a little zapped. He also thinks people are getting insulin resistant and people aren't responding to carbohydrates the way that they used to. You think about a young kid, a lot of times parent will be like, oh man, maybe my kid had too much sugar because the kid's acting what? He's like hyperactive. He's like going a little nuts. He's a little fidgety. He's yelling, screaming. He's beating up his sister and doing a bunch of stuff that he's not supposed to be doing. He can't sit still. And a lot of times parents are like, oh man, he did have that cotton candy and he did have this thing and that thing. It's because children, they can respond really well to sugar. They can utilize sugar really well, or their body just wants to utilize that sugar. Their body wants to run off that sugar. That's why they get so happy about candy and so forth, is because they know that their body runs really well off of it. And then as parents, hopefully we can figure out ways to curb that a little bit, because we recognize that a kid is not going to be on a super low-fat diet all the time. The kid's probably going to be exposed to a lot of other types of foods, and that could end up resulting in weight gain. But when I'm talking about low-fat, let's just actually talk about like specific numbers, because a lot of times when we throw around the word keto, we're not really talking about keto. We're talking about a low-carb diet. And a lot of times when we talk about a low-carb diet, we're not defining how many carbs. And when we talk about really low fat, like let's define it. Let's talk about it a little bit here for a second. So my definition of very low fat for a particular day would probably be anything that would be under around 30 or 40 grams of fat. I know it seems pretty damn low. The reason why I came upon those numbers is I found that it's actually fairly difficult to make it through a whole day where your fat is that low, because you have 5 grams of fat here, 7 grams of fat there, 6 grams of fat there. And this is how Cole has come to realize that, wait a second, maybe if we just don't eat as much meat, maybe it'll be easier to get to these numbers. And it'd be easier to keep those fats in check. Now, again, I'm not saying that there's not other strategies and other ways to lose weight. You can track your calories. You can track your macros. You can track all these different things. But this particular plan, what I have in mind for this particular plan and what I'm thinking about when I'm doing this diet, when I'm eating some Bubs gummies that are primarily little sugar bombs that have apple cider vinegar in them, I like the taste of them. And when I'm eating these things, or eating some Sour Patch Kids, while I watched that weird unicorn movie that just came out recently, my thoughts are I get to utilize this as really good energy. This is going to help with energy output. So I'm not eating these things before I go to bed, although I have messed up and had a bowl of Frosted Flakes before I went to bed. Not recommended. That's not a good route. That's all people are going to hear when they hear this video, is they're going to hear frost. Wait a second. They're going to say, wait a second, this diet has cereal in it. Cereal would be placed in a category of starches. And for this particular diet and this particular plan, you would only want to do that once a day. For those of you that have not taken a protein shake, first of all, this is the whey protein from Within You brand is by far the best protein. It tastes absolutely amazing, and it's very low fat. Or you can use the vanilla steak shake and mix that with your Frosted Flakes. It's unbelievable. But again, if we're thinking about weight loss, that kind of behavior every single day is most likely not going to result in weight loss, because you're probably going to eat way too much of it. A lot of the people that I'm talking about have been in Stall City. A lot of people I'm talking to have been stuck, right? And for those of you that are stuck, you're going to get unstuck by doing something that you haven't been able to execute on in the past. And that is having proper behavior that basically keeps you in a caloric deficit. That's what a lot of this comes down to. And the caloric deficit people are all cheering and they're all fired up and they're all happy. Whether we're doing keto, whether we're doing carnivore, or whether we're doing this or that, we can make some arguments that protein has a different thermic effect, and we can make some arguments about A, B, and C. But the truth is that the calories are a big factor. But in this case, what I like about this particular diet is, wait a second, the energy out is going to be pretty awesome with carbohydrates and sugar, with fructose from fruit. Now, when I'm saying sugar, I'm just talking about like all carbohydrates, because all carbohydrates do turn into glucose in the body. Something like a potato or something like that, or rice, these kind of things, they just take longer. And it's recommended that you only have these things about once a day, because they're just a little heavier and so on. And there's a lot of good reasons for that. But again, back to the amount of fat. I said 30 to 40 grams. The way that you're going to get there is by eating chicken breast, shrimp, really lean cuts of steaks. Ground beef is it's going to just put you over the limit. I mean, you can try it, but it's going to put you, even if you get like 93.7, it's probably going to be, it might not get you under the radar. It might not get you to where you want to go if you're eating some other foods for the day. But I've been eating scallops, I've been eating shrimp, and I've been eating Piedmontese steaks. Their filet has 0 grams of fat in it. They have a flank steak that's really lean. They have something called beef tips, which are very lean as well. So just look on their website. You can go to goodlifebrands.com. You can check it all out. You could use my code MarkBell. You get a percentage off. I know, you might get a little sticker shock, but organic, grass-fed, grass-finished, regenerative agriculture. I've actually visited the farm before, and Piedmontese beef is absolutely amazing. And when you go to Good Life Proteins, the advantage of utilizing that company is that is part of Piedmontese as well. And they sell not only all of the Piedmontese beef, but they also sell chicken breast, shrimp, scallops. That's where I get a lot of that food from. Scallops, by the way, have like 0.5 grams of fat per serving, and there's like 25 grams of protein. So hopefully you like scallops. I happen to really like scallops a lot. I've actually been doing surf and turf. I chop it up. I chop it up with some beef. I throw some seasoning on there. It comes out to be absolutely amazing, and the fat is super low. So your energy output, as I'm mentioning, is going to be higher when you're doing this style of diet. But we kind of need to make sure that it's higher. We can't just recklessly go and just down tons and tons of carbohydrates all day, unless it's fruit, because we can kind of make an argument that the fruit is going to have cofactors in it that are going to allow us to handle the carbohydrates that are in it. So fruit has potassium in it. Fruit also has fiber in it. And so it's going to slow down some of the absorption of some of the food. And so I don't have any problem with people just eating fruit. Some of these things need to be looked at as opportunities. So the way that I'm looking at some of these things, when I look at, say, like a fat-free yogurt, scallops, or if I look at a potato, or I look at rice, vegetables, and fruit, other than some weird fruits like avocados and different things like that, it's an opportunity to eat something that doesn't have any fat in it. That's pretty damn cool. So one thing we have to keep in mind is we got to keep in mind some of the things I've been teaching you guys from the beginning. Protein leveraging is still important. Having X amount of grams of protein per day is something that is going to be a factor in all of this, because you're still probably going to be hungry. And if you want to lose weight, you probably don't need to be that hungry. But if you've been stuck and you've been stuck for a long time, or you're trying to get shredded, you most likely have to be hungry. You most likely have to be hungry. You got to become friends with hunger. You got to be comfortable with that uncomfortable feeling of hunger and recognizing that it's going to pass. But what are some strategies if you start to get really hungry? Some strategies if you're hungry are to eat some berries. Some strategies when you're hungry is to have a non-fat yogurt. There's Chobani. There's also what's the one that I like? I always forget. Anyway, there's a lot of different choices when it comes to your 000. So the 000 yogurts, there's a lot of different choices. You can throw some protein powder in there, mix it up so it even has more protein in it, and you can throw some berries in there, and now we're having a little bit of a party. Just be careful on how much energy you're consuming in accordance to how much activity you're doing. So for me, this morning, I had a bunch of blueberries before my workout with a little bit of honey drizzled on it. Did a couple scoops of that, and then about an hour later, I did my Peloton workout, worked out for 45 minutes, did a hill and interval session that was pretty high intensity. It was great. I was completely drenched in sweat. It looked like I just got out of the pool. Awesome workout. And then to come here and to get a workout here at my home gym, I also downed some honey, and I literally just tipped back and just drank some honey. Some people have questions about their teeth on this particular diet because you're consuming some sugar and consuming some candy. Just brush your teeth. Maybe brush your teeth once more per day just to get that stuff off of there. Even if it's without, I brush my teeth here and there even without toothpaste, which people might think is disgusting, but all you're trying to do is just get some of the crap off of your teeth from, whatever it was that you ate. And then also, toothpaste just kind of flips your taste buds around in a different direction. So that's why I don't always add toothpaste. But of course, I brush my teeth twice a day with toothpaste. Obviously, flossing and all that stuff is going to be helpful because you are consuming more sugar than you have in the past. For the most part, we want to partition our energy. We want to plan our energy out. So it would be the most ideal. Now, if you work out at night, then I might have to shoot a different video for you talking about the plan if you work out at night. But basically, if you're going to do an activity, if it's before or after an activity, then it's game on in terms of the carbohydrates. Your carbohydrate sources are fruit, sugar, non-fat candies, honey. I guess you could have like maple syrup, and there's other things you can have in there. Just be a little cautious with making sure you're not overdoing it. We have to be reasonable about how much activity are you really going to have, because 25 to 30 to 50 grams of carbohydrates is a good amount of carbohydrates for a particular activity. Now, if you're going to do a high rocks workout, or you're going to really get after it with the sled, or you're going to go run 10, 12 miles, then maybe have 200 grams of carbs. Or if you're not going to be home for a while and you're just trying to have a good meal before you go work out and then run and so on, again, two or 300 grams of carbohydrates isn't really out of bounds in that particular situation. But don't have 200 grams of carbohydrates and then go and work out for only 30 minutes and have it not be at much of an intensity. It's going to be really hard for you to lose weight if you do things that way. The morning is going to be full of energy. You don't want to skip breakfast. You want to actually have a breakfast, and your breakfast could be some blueberries. If you want, you could have some yogurt in there too. Cole suggests that you just skyrocket your glucose and your insulin via just eating straight wet fruit, just straight fruit, apples, oranges, berries, a banana, something like that. I know some of you are probably thinking like a smoothie. Just go ahead and try it. Try these things. Are you actually losing weight? If you're not losing weight with the smoothie, then you got to pull it back out. Something I've been doing recently, and this is usually after a workout or before the evening time. This is like midday, or sometimes it's even after dinner. What I'll do is I'll blend up a bunch of frozen organic fruit. And when you blend up frozen organic fruit, I'll throw maybe like a scoop of vanilla. This is the whey protein in there. Maybe a scoop of yogurt, and it's not even a smoothie, it's like a sorbet. And it's absolutely incredible, very, very filling. Again, if you're making these things, just be cautious that it's not like a 300 gram of carbohydrate thing, and then you're going to bed, because you're not gonna really get the opportunity to use it. I know the next day we can get the opportunity to use it, but just pay attention to some of those things. Having that midday before a great workout, or having it post-workout, is probably a great appropriate place for it. As we start to get towards the evening is when we want to really start to utilize protein leveraging. That's where we want to have some meat and vegetables, and then hopefully you're not too hungry and you're able to go to bed from there. Even if you're not able just to go to bed from there, you could still have something like a steak shake after, an hour after dinner, when you're sitting there watching TV with your wife or girlfriend or whoever you're watching some TV with, or whatever it is you're doing at night to kind of relax and do some leisure stuff. So that's the way I've been doing. I've also been eating some David bars here and there. A David bar only has 2 grams of fat. It gives me something sweet. I like having that sweet treat. It's just something that I've been doing forever. And I'm just trying to think of like, okay, again, protein is not a great energy source. Protein almost doesn't count against us for being fat, but carbohydrates and fats can. And so ideally, I'm trying to shift all of my carbohydrates around the workout, right? Peri nutrition. Have you guys heard of that before? Peri nutrition usually refers to intra-workout carbohydrates, but it also refers to carbohydrates, or it's just nutrition in general. Nutrition during a workout, but it's also nutrition before the workout, nutrition after the workout. Later on in the evening is when you want to shift to basically meat and vegetables, lean sources of meat. I can't stress that enough, lean sources of meat. What you could do is you could start to incorporate this diet. You can start to mess with it. And if you're not making progress, look at the food labels and start to look at how much fat am I consuming? Am I consuming 30 grams of fat? Am I consuming 80 grams of fat? Am I consuming 100 grams of fat? You most likely are consuming too much fat. Almost every single person watching this channel right now, and every single person in the United States, and every single person in the world is most likely consuming too much fat, and that's why they're restricted from losing weight. Obviously, it's a calorie thing. Yes, I know they're eating too many calories, but they're not investigating their macros that well, and they don't understand that whether you're carnivore, keto, or not following a diet plan, you're on the standard American diet, it's those fat calories that are really screwing us up, because fat has 9 calories per gram as opposed to just 4 from carbohydrates. Last thing I want to mention is you're probably thinking of satiety and just, I don't know, overall feeling of wellness and feeling good and all the different things that fats do for our hormones and stuff. I don't believe that this is a permanent style of diet. So let's make that 100% clear. Remember, you're watching the Single Digit Body Fat series. And so we're going to use extreme measures sometimes to get down to those single-digit body fat. And to stay down here, we're going to start to try to get into something that's a little bit more reasonable. So it's not my plan to go through the rest of my life on 30 or 40 grams of fat every day. Although if it works, I guess. But I'm assuming that I'm going to need more at some point. What you have to keep in mind is there's fat on your body. So you might think like, oh man, I'm not really eating the fat. Your body is going to eat the fat off of your body, right? Like your metabolism is not stupid. It's going to be like, oh, well, he's not giving enough calories overall. And you know, his muscles are full of glycogen and this and that, and your protein, it's harder for your protein to turn into fats and so on. And the body's probably going to say, hey, there's some chub over here on the love handles. Let's utilize that for energy. And so it's not like your body's not utilizing lipids. It's not like your body's not still utilizing fats. It is. Your body's still utilizing fats because you have it on your body. For some of you that might be really lean, you might have to play around with those fat numbers because what I mentioned might be a little bit too low for some of you. But just try it for a few days. If face starts to get really lean, you start to get really shredded, those are all really cool things. But if the eyes start to get a little weird, bags under the eyes, you just kind of look tired, then then you probably have to maybe increase the calories, increase the carbohydrates, maybe you have to increase the fats a little bit. Anyway, that's the wacky diet. Why am I doing this diet? I'm doing it because I love trying things that are new. I love trying things that are different. And I figured, why the fuck not? Strength is never weakness. Weakness never strength. Catch you guys later.